So good evening everybody again, and this is I think called perfect timing. So just as Mr. Tupe finished, Mr. Tupe, please take a seat. A very warm welcome to Dr. Pradnya Saravade, Additional Director General of Police for Administration in Maharashtra, who's our chief guest. May I welcome Pradnya on stage, please. May I also request Mr. Ajay Jain of CGM of Saraswat Bank to come on stage, please. Mr. Tupe, why don't you also join on stage so that you can then answer the questions. May I request Mr. Jain to welcome Dr. Saravade with a bouquet of flowers. I now have the honor of introducing Dr. Saravade, and we are all waiting to hear from her. Dr. Pradnya Saravade is the Additional Director General of Police for Administration in Maharashtra, as I've already said. She is a medical doctor, an MBBS from the Grant Medical College in Mumbai, and she also has a post-graduation in surgery, and then decided to appear for the civil services examination and join the IPS. In her long years in the police, she has handled everything from traffic to human trafficking and from crime to cybercrime. From 1996 to 2000, she worked with the CBI's Banking, Securities and Fraud Cell, and later she did a stint as the Executive Director at the Securities and Exchange Board of India, where she headed investigations. What we really like about Pradnya is that she's a thinking cop. She regularly posts her thoughts on policing on her blog, pradnyanblog.wordpress.com. The reason I'm telling all of you is that you can communicate with her by going to her blog and also reading her thoughts on a lot of issues. In fact, I was looking at her blog recently and I noticed a post when she returned to the police department after what she calls was a very enjoyable stint as the head of vigilance at CIDCO. And Mr. Shrikant Barve will be very happy to hear this. But she says that the department has a huge budget for supporting better health for policemen through yoga. Okay? I'm saying this to Mr. Barve because he is an evangelist who has probably, got thousands of people, enthusiastically into yoga over the years, and he's been a regular for this program. So I think with Pradnya Saravade, we're going to have much calmer police people who are obviously going to be handling their job much better, I hope. From our perspective, though, we couldn't have had a more fitting chief guest for this final talk, because the big credit for helping us with the most upright, knowledgeable and well-regarded speakers from the police department to go to her and Mr. Nandkumar Sarvade. They have been huge applause, because we would really not even have known whom to contact. I think all of you will agree that we've had some of the best policemen coming here and speaking to us, and a lot of you had come like us, partly cynical about the police. I mean, we are cynical about everything. We are cynical about journalists, doctors, policemen, lawyers, judges. So we had the same attitude, but I think the people that we have met over the last 3 months, they give you a different perspective, both on the kind of work they have done personally, as well as the kind of difficulties that they have faced while doing the work that they do. So without further ado, may I invite Dr. Saravade, but before that, couple of things. One is that we have asked Mr. Jain to welcome Dr. Saravade, and I want Devashish to welcome Mr. Jain with a bouquet of flowers. Devashish Basu, our trustee, please. Mr. Jain, there's one more little thing that I must tell you about, that all of us have been noting how wonderfully we've been treated at Saraswat Bank, all these 3 months that we've been coming here, and a lot of people have come back to us telling us how everyone from the security downstairs to the people that we meet have been unfailingly courteous, and I think it's been a wonderful experience. We have a small little gift which is meant for your staff. I think we had asked, she's here, wonderful. We've been looking for you, we even announced it. We want you to accept this on behalf of your entire team, and you have really been very good to us. Kavita Bendre. So, without further ado, may I request Pradnya Saravade to address us?
Good evening, everybody, and first let me say I'm extremely sorry for coming so late for this program. At the outset, I must applaud Sucheta's and Devashi's and the Moneylife team's efforts in doing all this public education, and especially bringing the police and people closer together and enabling the police to interact with the people. Because police is one department which really needs this and yet does not do it for whatever reason it deems fit. There's so much, as she herself mentioned, there's a lot of good work in the police, and the more people interact that the police can have, there is so much more goodwill that can be generated for the department, because it does a lot of good work indeed. So I'm really thankful and I applaud Sucheta's efforts in this direction. Secondly, Mr. Tupe has been a colleague when I was heading the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Mumbai, and I have seen the extraordinary work and the tremendous dedication that he used to bring to the job, and he has done that in his every posting. And interestingly, even in the private sector, he goes on this issue of corruption and how it should never happen and how he will do everything to prevent it. So he is just the right person for today's program. I will not spend too much time on, I'm sure he must have delved into everything about statistics and the kind of cases that happen and all of that. But corruption as an issue is something, obviously, since you are the audience and sitting here and listening to this, is a serious concern. And it's a concern for every citizen of this country from a very, very long time. And we've got so used to this fact that corruption is a part of our life that we talk a lot about it and say a lot of things about people who are corrupt, etc. But there are very few solutions I see coming up on the horizon. The to-dos, which are not too many, that are out there and are implemented with vigor and the positivity that this kind of subject should really have. So today I am going to talk on some things that I did when I was the Chief Vigilance Officer in CIDCO. Now, CIDCO was an organization which had a very poor reputation as far as its integrity goes on service delivery. It was established in 1970, and till I was appointed in 2014, there was no vigilance officer. So it had no idea that there's something called as vigilance and how you do service delivery. So it was corrupt to the point that people felt that it was all right to do these things. This is a government, the way government functions. This is the way this company will function. Now, to a larger or lesser extent, this is the scenario across all government departments in India. There's a sense of hierarchy vis-a-vis people. Somebody is the boss, somebody is the king, and somebody is the servant. Though the public servant is the so-called government official, but he is never a public servant in that sense. So that's why we have this whole issue of corruption. So with the kind of width that this problem is across every department, the thing I thought in CIDCO was, let me see if I can think of solutions to this. So what were the solutions? I thought there's no way I'm going to handle complaints of corruption, because that will kind of totally, I'll sink under the weight. So how do I do it? It has to be through preventive measures. So what preventive measures can I bring that corruption itself doesn't become such an overarching issue that the complaints which should come occasionally and should be handled really like an exception. How do I achieve that kind of a status for the state of corruption? So the few things that we did was, okay, there are two sides to corruption, the supply side and the demand side. That was a company a public sector company, so the supply side corruption was basically dealing with contractors. And when you have that side of corruption, it is basically that people, the contractors feel, the vendors feel that since it is a fact of life, if one company doesn't indulge in bribery, it does not have a even playing field. So the playing field for corruption is heightened because of the perception that there is a lot of corruption. To reduce that kind of a effect, that is the perception of corruption, what we did was we thought of this excellent initiative which is there by this Transparency International called as Integrity Pact. Initially I was told by a lot of people that what are you doing, it is just a signing of a document between the company and a few officials in CIDCO, and how is it going to help? That I will not be corrupt, you will not be corrupt, and if we find any one of us corrupt by a third party who will be the investigator on this, who will not be from CIDCO, who will be an outsider. But despite that, how do you ensure that the signing of a document is going to lead to less corruption? But the entire supply side on India is because of perception. So if you can attack that perception, that CIDCO as a company or any government department as a company which deals with contractors will not indulge in corruption and will not tolerate corruption. If that perception is handled, it's a psychological issue, it's a psychological manner to deal with the supply side part of the corruption. So that is something we put in place, and it was rather very successful because it was not a usual kind of an experiment. A lot of vendors came forward, they said, please train us into what this whole document is about, that we are signing as part of our e-tendering, but tell us what it is all about. So Transparency International was brought in and the training session was organized, that these are your rights. If anybody asks you for something, if anybody is asking you for influences outside of what your conditions of contract are, you have this kind of right and this will be investigated impartially and you will be bound by that. That itself has a psychological effect on the government employee. You know, a signature on a document is much more powerful than your verbal words. So how much ever one may shout and say no corruption, no nothing, but you make the person sign on something, he will think twice about violating that. So that had an effect. At the same time, the demand side, which was the larger problem, and which is a larger problem across most government departments. The demand of bribes. So we thought that how do you do this thing on prevention? So one thing, the very important thing on tackling corruption is transparency. And the second important thing on controlling corruption is to make processes very simple. If you complicate processes, if you keep processes secret, then corruption is bound to be there, and it is an invitation for an already environment which already exists, which is ripe and ready for demand of rights. So if you simplify procedures, if you fix timelines for service delivery, which anyway, there's a lot of talk on that, charter of rights and things like that, citizenry. But if you can fix it, if you can make these manuals, if you can make that processes very clear and be transparent enough to let everybody know that this is a function, for that these are the processes, these are the officers, the rank of officers who will do it, this is the timeline in which this particular process is going to complete. I think that binds both sides. That binds the person who is doing the process, and that also prevents any unnecessary allegation coming in from the other side. I think we had a good success with that too. So a couple of departments, it was a very large organization, and in my tenure of 2 years, I really could not do more than 4 or 5 departments. But which were the really large departments, engineering and consulting, so some departments, marketing, which was a high end of the problem. And we manualized everything. We wrote very simple, a few pages kind of a manual, and we put that on our vigilance website, incident. Another interesting thing that we did, I think this is one I'm rather proud of that initiative, is that vigilance website that we have. Now there are a lot of websites where information is displayed and there's a lot of transparency. So this aspect of transparency in government functioning is seen more and more. I won't say it is great, but it is seen more and more, especially since the enactment of RTI. But what we did with this website was that people complain of corruption. We used to display that complaint on the website. So somebody is saying that X person from this department is asking me a bribe for doing this thing, for pushing my file. So we would take care to see that the person's names are being concealed. Okay, so mask those particular things. It is just a technology thing. The name of the person who's complained against, the name of the person who is complaining is masked, and the rest of the thing is displayed. What that achieved for me was people are watching this, everybody is watching what is happening on the vigilance website, including the guy who's asking money. So the guy who's asking money, he's seeing that yes, there's something coming here who's saying that somebody is asking for 10,000 rupees for pushing a file in this department. So he does not go further in that act of corruption. Okay, he kind of stops right there. He says, okay, this, because I'm also watching it, he knows there's an inquiry going on that, because I know who the name is. And that had such a tremendous effect that people, started being very angry about this thing in the organization. See, what is this? There's some things is coming up, it is showing such poor light and all that. I said, nothing doing, I have complaints and I'm investigating. It's not that these are bogus things that I'm putting over here. This is something I'm looking into. These are all inquiries, but I'm going to put them. But interestingly, the volume of complaints was very minimal regarding corruption. But there were lots of complaints about service delivery of that organization. That whatever some road is dug up, something, those kind of things, but not of corruption. So the corruption volume was minuscule, but I think that had an effect. Whatever minuscule volume came in over there, it had an effect. And the last thing we did was that first we did this process manual. Second we did was this website which got these complaints. We handled the supply side. Then I thought that we should give them an exit option. They must know that they have an alternative, and it is an honorable alternative to corruption. The honorable alternative is that I decide not to be corrupt. So how do I make them decide that? We thought there's no other way other than what in Marathi is called prabodhan. So we got in speakers who were not giving gyan, but who were talking of their own life experiences, wherein that life had been spent largely in public good, had been spent selflessly. And these were not necessarily very well-known names. There were a few, but they were also very ordinary people. There was one teacher, I could just give an example, of a primary school, in a way God forsaken Adivasi Pada. Some visitors had come to my office and we were just mentioning about that area and how it doesn't have any facilities and things like that. And he mentioned that this is a school, and the school it has one room, but the teacher is so good that he has painted all kinds of educational material on the walls of the school. So the tables which the primary school teachers, school children need to know, so he had painted those, painted some things like that. So the whole atmosphere of the school he had made as something which was educational. Every time a child stepped in there, he was learning something. So I said, what must be the motivation of this person? What has motivated that school teacher who is far away from any supervision? I don't think any education inspector is going to visit that school frequently, if at all. And yet this person is doing something over and above his salary. So what is motivating this person to do it? So we decided to call him over and speak to our employees. We said maybe he can't, he's a school teacher and seeing it was an auditorium of 500 and seeing so many he might feel a little. So we had an interview kind of a session where one person was talking, and at the end of that session, and the usual time used to be 1 hour. At the end of that session, which lasted for 1.5 hours and still did not want to conclude, one of the employees was so overwhelmed. He took a box of old biscuit, that glucose biscuit cardboard tin, and he went around the auditorium collecting money for the school, and everybody very generously donated, and some 21,000 was collected that evening and given to the school by the employee. You have to build in an ability of people to understand and think that what they do should be the right thing. So that exit option is also critical. You might go on hitting the problem by saying this is wrong and they must be fought and they must be, certainly all that must happen. But the chunk of people who lie in that very grey area of uncertain how to deal with whether there's a chance that I can make money here. I'm not a bad person, but if I can ask, because everybody else seems to be doing that, and therefore ask and make money and is corrupt, and therefore, hurting the organization in that way. But that person needs an exit option. He needs to think that yes, the good is something which is right and needs to be followed. So you have to create a certain positivity around this topic of corruption. There is enough beating which has happened, but we must come out with the to-dos, and the to-dos have the chunk of the to-dos has to be in the prevention, because the problem is overwhelming. We cannot handle the problem. I don't think it's a problem which can be looked at as doing more audits and taking more cases out of that. All that, whatever is the process, has to be done. There's no doubt of that. But you have to create organizations which have ethos, which have an ethic towards doing the right thing, towards being non-corrupt. That is the only way forward to my mind, seeing the size of the problem. I think I will end with this, and I would love to hear and take questions if there are any on this topic. I'm sure there will be issues which even Tupe would like to answer.
We'll just take a few questions and let people ask them directly.
Good evening, everybody. What is inspiring is that there is a winds of change in the police department. It is a great feeling that, for the last 12 weeks, these programs have been going. And the police officers, whoever have been talking, have been telling us the truth, I would say. Something which is never found in newspapers, books, and a big thank you to the police department. Trust today, as an ordinary individual or layman, the trust that the police have built over here is, I think, resounding. Thank you very much.
One of the questions I wanted to ask until he comes forward is this suggestion about what you did in CITCO. I think it should be replicated even on the investigative agencies as well as regulators. I wish the RBI website, Sachet, would do it so that people are able to list complaints and they're there for everyone to see, because I think we will get redressal happening much faster, right?
Yeah. So you're right, this grievance redressal is one of the main issues in how it's a strategy to tackle corruption. If you can handle that effectively, because there are complaints which come and they are also not attended. So the the entire thing has no bite currently. You can complain and you can complain, but you don't see a solution in sight. You can go to court and it can, because our processes are sluggish. The whole problem is the sluggishness of every redressal process. In that scenario, there is no other way but to make people think that that I may be caught and therefore I should not. The prevention is the only outlet. So these kind of things, this option of that website was alright in CITCO because it was a small organization and I headed the whole thing and I could handle it. Here I have to convince a lot of people before we can open out something like that. But yes, it is worth, these are the things which should be pushed actually, and everybody, all of us, from the government, from outside. It's not easy to shake that system. It has to be, and you don't want to destroy the system. Things are there, there is a large, we are a country with a large amount of people who are poor. The government needs to do what it needs to do. So the government has to exist in whatever way it is, but it has to deliver well. So the only way is to do some preventive.
Well, my name is Dr. Debri. I am also a JN site like you, which means we are from the same college.
Yes.
It is very amazing and surprising that you, after becoming an MBBS and becoming a surgeon, now you are actually having surgical strikes against the. Can you just tell us, ma'am, what made you change your profession? What is the thing that
I think the questions can
I'm a student for me because I'm 63.
It's a human
I don't
interest
qualify.
story for you, but I think we can limit our question answers to corruption. But just as a thing, I had a lot of interest in public service. For me, the field of medicine surgery was a very one-to-one, and I thought I need to get out there. So that's what made me look out.
Ma'am, the question raised is, can a government officer display behind his table, I don't accept bribe? And Indians are used to Tatkal and VIP Darshan, pay for quick service in short. Can government officers officially accept payment for quick service on receipts?
See, the whole issue of time, the timeline, what I mentioned. So when we did this issue about giving receipts for quick service, Tatkal, what happens is there are so many the points of public contact. So if you take any department, when we were in anti-corruption, we decided to take up one department which is sales tax those days, and we sat with the chief then and we said, what are your number of points of public contact? If you have 100, can you think of using IT, using other things to reduce it to 50? Because if you have 50, then it is possible to supervise those 50 better. The other 50 goes away, your corruption will go down. At the same time, this issue of time has to be laid out, because it's the amount of staff that the office has, a particular license or a particular document can be issued in so much time. You give it plus minus 5, not minus, but plus 5, plus 10, whatever, and you fix a time. You don't have to pay money for getting that service in one day. You fix a time that it will be given in 15 days. People are tolerant, they will wait 15 days and I should get it, provided you are able to keep that 15 days. And that's where the vigilance and the preventive vigilance and all that comes into play. To ensure that, because there is then the counter check is on that employee. If a complaint arises that it's 20 days and I've still not got it, then it becomes a vigilance issue. So it's these kind of measures. You should not, I think, have Tatkal, because that's again a discriminatory thing. That you pay some money and you get your services fast. What about the ordinary man? He has to wait for 15 days to get the same service. I think that's a little discriminatory. So it won't be, to my mind, it's whatever the government output has to happen largely on a common platform.
तो मैम, आपने भी सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जाम दी है, और सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जाम ऐसी कि वर्ल्ड में वन ऑफ द कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव एग्जाम्स है कि जो स्टूडेंट को जज करती है, और अभी तो सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जाम में एक एथिक्स का स्पेशल पेपर भी है। और अगर आप छोटी से छोटी एग्जाम में देखें, मतलब पुलिस कांस्टेबल की एग्जाम भी अब इतनी कॉम्पिटिटिव है कि बहुत कम लोग अंदर जा पाते हैं। तो हम एग्जाम सिस्टम से इतने अच्छे ब्रेन लाते हैं, तो सर्विस में आने के बाद कुछ ही दिनों बाद वो करप्ट क्यों जाते हैं? मतलब हम कम काम करते हैं।
As I said, that we are a country where we are used to corruption for a very, very long time. From the days when we had that license permit, quota Raj, and everything was dependent on payment in order to do any kind of activity. So we have got used to that. So once you are in the system, you are part of that ethos, which is corruption. You have to change the ethos. So ये जो आप बोल रहे हैं कि the people who come very well educated and are in the system, what is happening is they are not changing the ethos. They are enjoying the ethos. So there's something, it is not a question of ability. Ability तो सब में है, इतने पढ़ाई करके आते हैं तो ability तो जरूर है. but that ability is not being used, and nobody is asking them to use it also.
तो क्या जो एक इंसान चेंज करने की कोशिश करता है फिर उससे रिटेलिएशन फेस करना पड़ता है?
I know. See, there are so many cases where people who have taken that as a flag have been victimized in so many ways. So the only, that's what I'm saying, that try to not, if you want to make a change and a lasting change, the change has to be in the system. Catching one guy, because उसको अगर पकड़ेंगे आप तो उसके अगेंस्ट जो भी होगा वो होता है या नहीं होता है, बट सिस्टम तो बदलती नहीं, द सिस्टम कंटिन्यूज, वो चला जाएगा, दूसरा आता है, वो भी वैसे ही होता है. So the point is how do you change that? The push has to be not on humans, on 1 and 2 persons. The push has to be on the systems, the offices, the processes, functions. इससे ज़्यादा काम करने से long term में फर्क पड़ेगा.
Pradnya, what is your opinion on, if I say that the average morality of the public is same as the average morality of the government and the public servants, is this a true statement according to you? I mean, the corruption lies only on that side, is it on both sides, or what is your perception?
As far as I understand this, any human being, not necessarily an Indian, if he is given the opportunity to do something wrong, he will do it unless there are checks in the system. So it is a human feeling. It is not that Indians are like that, or Indian public is like that, or Indian government servants are like that. It is a human feeling unless you have good institutional mechanisms to check that. Had we had, as I mentioned earlier, we have a sluggish redressal system. Complaint redressal भी नहीं होती और judicial redressal में देरी लगती है. So where do you go? So all you do is you take the power in your hand और जो भी कर सकते हैं उससे pay money or hit somebody or do be dada, do something, and you go on with life. Because you have a limited life. So that's how the attitudes come with corruption.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we give a big hand to...
May I request Dr. Saravade to come back on the stage, as also Mr. Jain and Mr. Tupe. Thank you very much, Dr. Saravade. I think you lived up to exactly what I was saying about being a thinking cop looking for macro solutions. So we come to the end of our 12 weeks, and I hope all of you have found it a learning experience. I certainly did. And as I said, this would never have happened but for the wonderful support from Dolphy D'Souza here, who's going to be co-hosting this, and his team from Police Reforms Watch. So I want to request Dr. Saravade to present certificates to the team from Police Reforms Watch. So may I invite all of you on stage. First, Mr. Linus Dilemma. Mr. Linus Dilemma. Mr. Surinder Khubchandani. Mr. Ashwin Barsinghe. And Mr. Salil Ramchandra. I now hand over to Dolphy for the usual closing.
First of all, it's a tremendous experience for the police reforms team to partner and collaborate with Moneylife Foundation, Suchita Dalal, Debashis Basu and the entire team. And it would mean the fitness of things if you could stand up and give them a standing ovation. We would also like to remind you, because we're getting requests coming in, whether we could continue this series on an ongoing basis. We know what Suchita and the team has gone through in terms of a struggle. Although this program went on for 3 months, but the incubation started 3 months before that to get to the speakers. And I must say that Mr. Nankumar Sarvade and Dr. Pradnya Saravade have been very, very responsible for ensuring that we get the best police officials ma'am, I can tell you this, that with your support, there's a tremendous amount of perception change when we heard police officers like Mr. Tupe, Mahale, and so many others who came in for all our sessions, that we have also people like this in the police team. We also have a pleasure to present a few participation certificates to some of those who basically attended, that was a promise, who attended all the 12 sessions, and I would request if Mr. Jain could do a little bit of honors to present it to them for a few of them. Mrs. Anjali Barve, Mrs. Geeta Mehta, Mrs. Jane Rodrigues, Mr. Johar Motiwala, Mr. Mitesh Shah, sorry. Is he there? Mr. Mitesh Shah. Yes. So please take the seat. I'll request Mr. ACP retired Vilas Tupe to present the honors to the other participants. Mrs. Nayanantara Talgutkar. Nayantara. I'll call her Tara because Mr. Roy D'Souza. Mr. Sanjeev Singh and Mr. S.K. Shinoy. This is just a representative because we have overshot our time, that's why. The rest of the certificates will be given by Shilpa Raut once you are departing from here at that table on my left. Okay. You have the case of this prosecuting attorney lambasting the witness. Said, did you take 50,000 rupees to weaken this case? And this witness was looking out of the window as if he had not heard the question. Again the lawyer shouted at him and says, answer me that question. And the judge was witnessing this. And the judge asked him, sir, please answer the question that the lawyer has raised to you. And then the witness tells the judge, I thought he was speaking to you. As a token of our appreciation for our speakers today and our chief guest, I would request Shilpa Raut to present a memento to Mr. Vilas Tupe. I would request Ms. Suchita Dalal to present a memento to Mr. Ajay Jain, Senior Chief General Manager of Saraswat Bank. We definitely once again want to reiterate our thanks, a sincere thanks to Mr. Gautam Thakur, the chairman of the bank, who we missed him today, and the support that we got from the bank and its team for hosting this venue for us. And Mr. Debashish Basu, trustee of Moneylife Foundation, to present a memento to Dr. Pradnya Saravade. With a big thanks to her and Mr. Nankumar Saravade. Both for ma'am's presence today and also for Mr. Saravade for making this program a great success. They have a very, very big role to play besides all of you being here today as part of the support. And finally, quickly, again I want to thank Saraswat Bank and Mr. Gautam Thakur. Would like to thank every single speaker who was here in our midst today. We would like to thank the police reforms team. You heard some of them receiving the awards, the certificates. And then thanks to the team at Moneylife Foundation. Apart from organizing and coordinating the event, I would like to point out to you that Mr. Yogesh Sapkale, the deputy editor, ensured that the reports and photos were published the same very day. I'd like you to applaud every single name that I say. Please applaud. Special mention to Mr. Pankaj Raheja. Where is the applaud? Miss Shilpa Raut, Ignatius Lawrence, Sanket, Chaitanya, Sachin, Santosh, Babu and Ashok for all the hard work with the weekly announcements and arrangements. I can tell you, you'll never get a heart attack today because of the applauses that you are giving. Sanket has also ensured that the video recordings, editing and uploads, Ajay Vaiti, Bhakti Gadge and Srinivas worked behind the scenes for the mailers and the announcements. We will discuss with Mr. Tupe and announce the dates for counseling on police issues shortly. So await that announcement. This will be part of our daily counseling sessions on a variety of subjects. Please don't forget to give us your feedback. Jai Hind. And thank you all for making it possible for us day in and day out for your presence. Thank you.